Hi, it's Matthew Turnage. Welcome to my channel. Before I start today's video, I thought I'd give a quick shout out to Richard McCook, who is an early supporter of my channel, and he gave a shout out to me on one of the live streams for Rachel the Music Ma'am, and as a result, I picked up a few more subscribers last week. So I want to say thanks, Richard, and also thanks, Rachel. If you haven't checked out either of their channels, please do so. They're both great channels and well worth your time. All my videos so far have been either Beatles or solo Beatles related, and while I am planning on primarily doing Beatles content on my channel, I don't want to be exclusively Beatles content. From time to time, I'm going to talk about some of my other favorite bands and favorite albums. So today I thought I'd talk about one of my favorite albums of all time, and that's Deep Purple's Machine Head album. Machine Head was released in March of 1972, recorded in December 1971 in Montreux, Switzerland. Very famous incident in the recording of this album, which they immortalized in the big smash hit song off of it, Smoke on the Water. The album was recorded with the Rolling Stones mobile studio and originally intended to be recorded at a venue known as the Casino, which was one of the regular venues that Deep Purple had played touring over the years before that. They arrived in town the day before the album was due to begin recording. That day, the day that they arrived, that night, the final concert of the season was taking place before it shut down for the winter, and Deep Purple would have the place to themselves for a couple weeks to record. That concert was by Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, and as the lyrics to Smoke on the Water say, during the concert, somebody fired a flare gun in the venue. The casino was an old wooden building. The flare lodged in the trunking, and the building burned to the ground in pretty short order. Fortunately, everyone got out. There were no injuries, but it meant Deep Purple. It was in the short term. One of the main effects was Deep Purple was left without a place to record their album. So Claude Nobbs, Funky Claude, as he's referred to in Smoke on the Water, found them an alternate recording site. They recorded one night at a place in town called Le Pavillon, which is where they recorded the backing track for Smoke on the Water, although they had no lyrics for it yet. And then they found a more permanent home for the rest of the recording at the Grand Hotel just outside of town, where the rest of the album was recorded. All the remaining tracks, plus they recorded the vocals to Smoke on the Water after they had written the lyrics to tell the story of recording the album. Machine Head was a big smash for Deep Purple. They had already established themselves with the In Rock and Fireball albums in the UK and across Europe, and after early success by the original Mark I lineup in the US, they had kind of fallen off the map there, but begun to re-establish themselves. But Machine Head was the big breakthrough for Deep Purple Mark II in the US. It hit number 7 in the US, and it was number 1 in the UK. And the single Smoke on the Water became a number 4 hit in the U.S., which tied their early hit Hush as their highest charting single in the U.S. Machine Head opens with Highway Star, which was a song that had been in their set list for a few months prior to the recording. They had written it on the road to a gig in a bus. They had begun writing it, performed it that night in Portsmouth, UK, at the Portsmouth Guildhall, and it was a regular set opener from that point on. It evolved over stage. If you listen to the bootlegs from that period, you can hear the song's evolution as it begins to take on the structure that we know from the album, and the lyrics begin to develop. when the song is performed live, it kind of builds up with Ian Pace starting that beat on the snare, and then the bass and the guitars coming in and building up the tension and building up the tension. On the album version, they performed it that way in the studio, but they decided on the album version to edit the beginning of it, so it begins as Ritchie Blackmore hits that first big chord, and so when you put on the album, it just kind of explodes out at you, which I just love. But even though it pops right off from the beginning, it's still, they're building up that tension and building up that tension and that anticipation. There's that sense of building in there, and Gillan's screams come in, just ratchets it up, ratchets it up, and then it just it comes on full force as it goes into the first verse. Just great energy. It's a great song, one of the greatest opening songs of all time on any album, and one of the best concert openers of all time. The other great thing about this tune is the solos. Just an amazing organ solo from John Lord, and then also a great guitar solo from Ritchie Blackmore. Both solos incorporate some classical elements. John Lord talked about there's a segment of that solo where he was inspired by Bach, sort of Bach type chord progressions that he solos over. Ritchie Blackmore says the arpeggio run that he plays was kind of a Mozart flavor that he was going for there, but it's just pure full force rock and roll energy. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's a sort of song I can never get tired of. It's a great tune to crank up in your car. Gillan's lyrics are just great. It's one of the all-time greatest car songs ever written, and I can't say enough about it. It's an absolute favorite of mine. Next track on the album is Maybe I'm a Leo, which is a great bluesy riff from Roger Glover. Fun lyrics on this one. Also, always like that lyric, Maybe I'm a Leo, but I ain't a lion. Great tune, and great playing from the band. Again, it's one of the simpler songs that they've written, but it really sticks out, and it fits in good after the high energy of Highway Star. A nice bluesy riff, but still with a hard rock edge. Third up is Pictures of Home, which is another outstanding track. It opens with a great drum intro from Ian Pace, who I think is one of the more underrated rock and roll drummers. You know, in his era, John Bonham of Led Zeppelin got a lot of the attention, but to me, Ian Pace is every bit as good of a drummer. And Machine Head has great drum performances, but particularly I think if you listen to the album before, Fireball, and then a couple albums later, Burn, the drumming on those two albums are just outstanding. But great drum intro on Pictures of Home. Love that riff from Ritchie Blackmore. It's a lot of fun to play on the guitar. The way it runs up the scale like that, and this is another song with some really outstanding lyrics. You get the idea of the feeling of isolation and kind of the dark mood of the time the band was in, as they were in this uncertain period of being forced into this uncertain recording situation and not knowing how things would work out. I always like the line, I'm alone here with emptiness, eagles, and snow. It's just very evocative lyrics from Ian Gillan, and great vocals throughout. Also, what's interesting about this track is an extremely rare for Deep Purple bass guitar solo from Roger Glover. It's a nice little bass spotlight there in the middle of the song, and great playing throughout from all the band. Last song on side one is Never Before, which was a song that the band wrote with the idea of it becoming a single. It's a bit more commercial for them. Of course, it did not become a hit, but it is a good tune. If I'm ranking the tracks on the album, it would be my least favorite, but I think it's a good tune. It's catchy. good vocals, especially the bridge section. Gillan does some double tracked vocals and some nice harmonies, nice melody in that section. It's a really it's a really nice piece of music in there, but it doesn't hold up to the rest of the album, if I'm being honest. And we flip it over to side two, and it kicks off with the one song that Deep Purple will always be known for in their career, "Smoke on the Water." That absolutely instantly recognizable riff, guitar riff from Ritchie Blackmore. And then what I love, especially on this studio version, is as the rest of the band comes in. Of course, Ian Pace kind of builds up with it, with the hi-hat coming in and then adding the snare, and then that really thick Rickenbacker bass sound from Roger Glover kicks in. It's a really really cool part of that song. And I mean, what else can you say about "Smoke on the Water"? It's an absolute classic. Great guitar solo from Ritchie Blackmore, one of my favorite solos of his, and the lyrics are cool, telling the story of making the album. And incidentally, too, where the title comes from, as I mentioned, the casino burned. The casino was like the entire city of Montreux on Lake Geneva, and the casino is really near the water. So as the casino burned, and the wind was blowing down from the mountain, the smoke from the fire blew out over Lake Geneva, and as the band was watching this burn, that was the image that they had of the smoke from the fire coming over the water of Lake Geneva. And in the album's gatefold, there's actually a photo of the casino burning, and you can see the smoke going over Lake Geneva. Next up after that is "Lazy," which is another song like "Highway Star" that was written and developed on the stage in the months leading up to the recording of the album. This was designed as a instrumental showcase for the soloists John and Ritchie, to take the place of a instrumental tune from their second album, a song called "Ring That Neck," that had long been one of the spotlights for the soloists during the live set. They've been doing it for over 3 years at that point, and decided it was time for something new in that spot. And so "Lazy" is what they wrote. Bluesy song, opportunity for Ian Gillan to show off his harmonica skills, or lunch rapper as he likes to call it. But it's a great song, still a staple of the live set today and fun to watch, even though John and Ritchie are no longer there. See Steve Morse and Don Airey carry on that tradition. It's a fun song, but probably a little bit better on the various live versions than the studio version. But still, it's a classic Deep Purple tune. And then side two and the album closes in great fashion with "Space Truckin'," which is another all-time favorite of mine. Great riff, great playing from the band. Love the drum break in there, and of course it would be a huge part of their live set. It would be kick off the extended jam session at the end of the album, or the end of the live concert, the regular set before the encores. So 5-minute version on the album, but it would stretch out to 20 minutes or more live when they played it back in the 70s. These days they don't jam on it like they used to, but it's a great song. The lyrics are a bit silly, but it's a lot of fun, and I love the song. So that's Machine Head, one of my favorite albums of all time. And if you haven't checked it out, you really owe it to yourself to give it a listen. It's one of the absolute best hard rock albums of the 1970s, or any decade really. So then in my reviews, I like to do a quick tour through the collection. This is an early 2000s pressing. Maybe about 2005 or thereabouts. 180 gram vinyl. It's a really good sounding pressing, and I would recommend it if you're looking for something other than an original pressing. But that's my only vinyl copy. I originally bought the album on CD back around 1995, the original Warner Brothers US CD. But at the time, I was not really interested in keeping multiple CD copies, so I gave it away 5 years later or so when I upgraded to this. This is the 25th anniversary edition CD that came out in 1997, and I would definitely recommend this if you're a fan of the album and you don't have this already. It's a 2-disc set, and it includes in the bonus tracks on the first disc with the remastered album. You get When a Blind Man Cries, which is another great blues song from the band. It was the only song recorded in the Machine Head sessions. It was not on the album. It was used as the B-side of the Never Before single, but it is a great tune with great soulful lyrics. Again, that same sort of dark, depressing feeling that Gillan is capturing in Pictures of Home really comes through in that song. It's truly a great piece of work. The other bonus tracks on here are you get the quad mixes of Maybe I'm a Leo and Lazy, and then on disc 2 you get the entire album plus When a Blind Man Cries, remixed in 1997 by Roger Glover. And the Glover remixes are interesting. The best thing about those is Roger's remixes, he likes to include the entire take. So whereas on the album, like on a song like Highway Stars, I said they edit off the beginning so it jumps right in. On this version you hear the build up like you would hear on the live version. But also, Deep Purple was never much of a band for writing endings. Only a couple of their songs on this album on the regular version have an actual ending on the album. The rest of them fade out. They would just, play till they got tired of playing, and then they just say, okay, fade it out to wherever it sounds good. But on Roger's remixes, you get to hear the full ending to the play out, where they just kind of stop a lot of times, and it's kind of fun to hear that. Only negative about Roger's remixes, he, in an effort to give us something different, which is something I can applaud, he used a different guitar solo in Smoke on the Water, and it's not a bad solo, but the regular album solo is so iconic. It's kind of hard for me to listen to the remix version of Smoke on the Water because the solo just doesn't do it for me. But still, otherwise, the remixes are worth a listen. But it's the original mixes and the original album that I come back to again and again. So there's my review of Deep Purple Machine Head, and I'll see you next time with probably get back to a little more Beatles content next time. Thanks for watching.